Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is called Underground, 12-inch finished. Here's the diagram and 4 blocks set block to block. This is still another Stitch Pink 2020 quilt from Motive Fabrics. It's one of their blocks. Here is the link you can go to download their pattern. We have 3 patches. Patch A is a 2-inch finished square. We cut 2.5-inch squares. We need 12 patches for the background and 4 patches for the red fabric. These patches are going to go in the corner units. There's a background and a red in each corner unit, and then we're going to use for the side units 2 more squares to do stitch and flip of these units, the side units. Patch B is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8-inch squares, cut them in half once diagonally for 2 patches. We'll need 8 patches of the background and 8 patches of the red fabric. These half square triangles are in the corner units. And we're going to make 2 at a time half square triangles. Patch C is a 4-inch finished square. We cut 4.5-inch squares. We need 1 patch of the dark fabric and 4 patches of the blue fabric. And these are the squares, the big square in the center and the squares in the side unit that we'll use when we stitch and flip. And here are the cutting instructions for all 4 fabrics. Patch A for the background and patch B for the background. I've given you options. You can cut 4 at 2 7/8 inches for the exact size, or cut them 3 inches to trim later. And you cut those squares for half square triangles 2 at a time. Or you can just cut each square in half diagonally once for 8 patches and sew your patches together. Or you can cut 1 square 6 1/4 inches for half square triangles 8 at a time. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. And patch A again for the red, and then this is patch B for the red fabric. And it's cut, whatever you do for patch B with the background, you do it for patch B with the red fabric, because you'll use the same method to make your 8 half square triangles. And then we have squares for the blue fabric and for the dark fabric. We'll start off step 1 making 8 half square triangles with the B units. Here are the B units, and we're going to make 2 at a time half square triangles. So I have 4 dark squares and 4 light squares. On the back of the light squares, we draw a diagonal line. Put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch on both sides of this diagonal line, and do that for all 4 sets of your B patches. Once you have it stitched on both sides, you're going to trim on the line, on the diagonal line. You open them up and you have your half square triangles. And then you press them. I pressed my seams open, and you'll have this. And now we're going to trim these to 2.5 inches. I use my 6.5-inch ruler, and I'm lining up the diagonal line with the seam line. Then I check all 4 sides of the half square triangle. I want to make sure I can cut some off here and here, and then my 2.5 inch has extra fabric I can cut here and here. Then I cut these 2 sides and turn this around and match up. You should be able to just match up your 2.5 inches here and here and your diagonal line. And then trim these last 2 sides. And do that for all 8 of your half square triangles. Next we're going to do stitch and flip. And this is what we want the unit to look like. We're going to make 4 of these. These are the side units. We'll stitch and flip 2 adjacent corners, and it will overlap and give you a point here and a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we've cut these 2.5 inches, and this is a 4.5 inch square, the big one. If you're doing just regular cutting, stitch and flip, mark your diagonal line on the back of your light squares and place them just like this. If you place it like this on your machine, you're going to stitch just to the right of this line, and we'll cut this off. If you need help to remember, put an X over here. That means that this is the corner you're going to cut off. If you're using the folded corner clipper, you don't have to mark your line. You place your fabric down, and again, this is where I want to cut off, so I'll put an X. And I put my ruler down like this. I'm matching the 2.5 inch mark and this small mark here, the edge of the fabric and the top of the fabric. Then I'm going to cut this off. And I'll stitch a 1/4 inch along this side. Both of these are stitched, and all we need to do for this one is to press the seams open. For this one, we're going to trim off, and you just cut off about a 1/4 inch away from your stitching. So we have exactly the same thing, we just have 2 different ways to get there. Now press both of these seams open. We're going to do exactly the same, only we're going to choose an adjacent side. It doesn't matter if you choose this one or this one, whichever you choose. So I'll do this with the stitch and flip and stitch again to the right side of this line, and then place the folded corner clipper like this, line it up and cut. And it will overlap, both of these cases will overlap the one we just stitched. I went ahead and pressed the seam open, and there's the finished unit. For the stitch and flip, you'll cut off this edge and press this seam open, and you'll have 4 units like this. These are the side units. Now we're going to take 2 of our half square triangles and 1 dark square and 1 light square, the 2.5 inch square. This is patch A. We're going to make the corner units, and they look like this. So you'll stitch these 2 together and these 2, and then press and stitch the rows together and make 4 like this. Here are our units all done, and put the block together. This is the center unit and the side units. Stitch these units into rows, the top, middle, and bottom. Press your seams and then sew the rows together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.